I really do have more shirts than this. This is my comfortable Sunday shirt. Also, excuse the mess. I've got friends staying with me this weekend, so what are you gonna do? Let's talk about tendonitis. So once upon a time, I was a high school student. It was my senior year and I was at an art school, and I had college auditions coming up. I was practicing 4 to 5 hours a day minimum. When I wasn't practicing, I was in rehearsal. And rehearsals on weekends. I had a Saturday rehearsal that was 3 hours long and a Sunday rehearsal, which, including chamber music, was about 6 hours long. On Valentine's Day of that year, I decided that I didn't need a Valentine and that Capriccio Espagnole would be my Valentine. And that day, I practiced for 7 hours straight. At the beginning of the year, I had noticed sort of a dull, aching pain, and over the next couple of months, the dull, aching pain became a sharp, screaming pain in my forearms and wrists. College auditions ended, and then I had 3 months to prepare my senior recital. At the end of the year, once all the concerts were done, and I had gotten into college, and my senior recital was over, I toured for about 3 weeks in China, where we played a concert almost every day. And then directly after that, I had 4 weeks of Tanglewood. When I noticed the dull, aching pain in my forearms, I didn't say anything because I didn't want to be told to take a break and put down the clarinet for a little while because I had so much to practice, especially the college audition repertoire. And that was probably my biggest mistake because I could have avoided a lot of the pain and agony that I later encountered. So when I got home from China and Tanglewood, I had 1 month to figure out what was going to happen with the pain that I felt in my arms. There was a rehearsal that I remember toward the end of the year where I was in tears playing because I had so much pain. And the danger of tendonitis is that playing music is sort of Olympic level micro athleticism that takes place with our bodies. I don't really know if that made a whole lot of sense. And tendonitis is something that if you don't get it under control, you can sustain injuries in your arms that are so bad that you won't be able to continue playing your instrument. I still have tendonitis, and I still feel it on an infrequent basis. I still feel it. And even though I've got it mostly under control, it's something that I just have to deal with now. So if you have tendonitis, the best thing, the number one thing you should do is not to listen to anybody's advice on YouTube or on any other, music forums. You need to see a doctor or a person who is in sports medicine. You need to see a specialist. What I'm about to tell you are things that worked for me, personally. And our bodies are all different. And if you listen to me and you have tendonitis and it helps, that's great. But you could be suffering from a more serious injury. And I don't want to make that worse. So my number one recommendation is to see a doctor as soon as possible because you might have a more serious underlying condition. Playing your instrument shouldn't be painful. There is a saying where when you're working out or you're in a gym, no pain, no gain. It is not like that with music. You should not be feeling pain when you play your instrument. And if you do, you need to take tons of breaks, drink more water, stretch out your tendons, and see a doctor. Depending on how bad your tendonitis is, you might get different instructions from the doctor, and you might have some stretches that they give you. Putting your hand out like this, your hand flat like this, and just sort of gently pulling it toward you. When you do this, you can feel the tendon along here stretching out, and that might help. Also, something like this will also help with your wrists. Putting your hands behind your back and clasping them and sort of pulling them back will also help. But again, see a doctor before doing any of this. When I started doing physical therapy for my injuries, I was shown that my tendon, right here, you can kind of see it, it was hard as a rock. I thought it was literally a bone. It should not be hard as a rock. My tendons were inflamed, my wrists were messed up. My treatment consisted of a deep tissue massage for about half an hour, which deep tissue massages on your tendons are not fun. They are painful, and my tendons already felt like they were on fire, so it was not fun. They also would put like an ultrasound thing, like some ultrasound gel, and like go over it with like an ultrasound thing. Another thing that you should do is just to drink tons and tons of water. Water is what we need to survive, and the more water you drink, the healthier you'll be. You also should plan out your practice session so that you can practice efficiently, but also safely and responsibly. If you have an hour to practice, you should plan for breaks when you're planning out your practice sessions. If you're feeling pain, it's better to practice over a long stretch of time with breaks in the middle than it is trying to cram in 2 hours of straight practicing. The schedule that has worked best for me is to practice for an hour in the morning, just sort of warming up, and then an hour in the afternoon where I go over a couple orchestral excerpts or technique exercises, and then I practice my repertoire at night. And my schedule doesn't always allow that. Sometimes I have a block of 4 hours in the afternoon and that's all I have. Sometimes I have 45 minutes on like a weeknight, and sometimes I have an entire day on the weekends. And I know that no one's schedule lines up perfectly where you have an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, and an hour at night. But if you have a whole day free, that is the best way to do it. So a typical warm-up session for me, a typical hour-long practice session for me, involves a 10-minute warm-up where I do long tones and scales. And then take a 10-minute break. Drink some water. Try to stay off your phone because you can get sucked into Facebook land, and then 20 minutes goes by, and then half an hour goes by, and we all know how that goes. And then I go over 10 minutes of really difficult music that I have, or an etude, or a technique exercise that I want to master. And I start at a slower tempo, and I practice it to get faster. Now the problem with that is that tendonitis manifests itself after you've been doing a lot of really, really repetitive motions with your fingers, which kind of sucks because that's the whole point of practicing. If I feel any pain at this point, then I stop and I take a break. During your break, you can do things like work on reads or listen to your repertoire that you're about to practice. And then when you're done listening to your repertoire, then you practice the repertoire. Depending on how much pain you feel and how frequently you feel, you might have to alter your practice session a little bit more than the example that I gave you. But the key is to take lots of breaks. Take breaks before you feel any pain so that you're avoiding overworking your tendons. And the second you start feeling pain, stop playing. And you really, I cannot emphasize this enough, to see a doctor. You really, really, like, this is sort of a life or death situation. Well, not really. This is really important because if it gets bad enough, you might not be able to continue playing your instrument in the future. I was at a conservatory, and a good amount of freshman players that I entered school with didn't continue on to other years because they practiced so much and so hard and didn't say anything about the pain that they were feeling, and they couldn't continue playing their instruments. And that's unfortunately the harsh reality of being a serious musician. So just take care of your body. Miriam's here. Okay, so I had a little bit of a wardrobe change. I know it's been half a second since the last thing I said and this thing I said, but it's a whole new day. How to avoid getting tendonitis in the first place. One thing you can do is use a neck strap, and that alleviates some of the weight of the clarinet off of your hands and tendons. You also want to make sure that you're playing with good hand position and finger position, which is really important. And you can practice that in front of the mirror. And good hand position means that your wrists aren't bent at any weird angles and that your fingers are nice and curled over the keys. You shouldn't be like pressing down or anything. You don't want to be playing with any tension in your neck or in your arms. You want to be very relaxed. And if you need to, you should get your clarinet worked on so that the keys are a little bit easier to press down. I know with some of the pinky keys, it can be especially difficult because they're a little farther away, especially if you have tiny hands like me. They're a little further away, and sometimes they can be hard to press down. So you want to make sure that your clarinet is in like tip-top working condition. Because if you're pressing down really hard to get, say, the left B natural out as opposed to using the right B natural, or, you know, the two pinkies to get out of B natural, this is B natural over the break. If you're using a lot of tension and a lot of pressure to try to get those down, that's not good, and that'll only set you up for tendonitis in the future. So you want to make sure that all your keys are super easy to push down. So basically, frequent breaks, drinking lots of water, and practicing efficiently are all really good ways to prevent tendonitis. And again, you shouldn't have any pain while practicing. So if you do feel pain in your forearms or in your wrists or in your hands, go see a doctor, get a recommendation for a specialist. So I hope this helped. Again, I am not a trained medical professional. I am a musician who suffers from tendonitis because I practiced really stupidly and irresponsibly. And I want to give you this information so that you can prevent any future injuries. And if you are dealing with any sort of pain, I can't stress enough to get off of YouTube and go see a specialist because it's really, really, really important. I cannot stress that enough. That's all I have. If you have tendonitis or if you have pain or if you've dealt with this before, leave a comment. If you found this video helpful, give a like and subscribe and all that good stuff. I look like a mess, so I'm gonna go take a shower before my rehearsal tonight, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.